I initially.
Right. Well, the reason this came up. Are you muted, Colin? Did I mess you up?
I beg your pardon?
Okay, I was just making sure I didn't mess you up.
No.
This came up because the DEI task force has DEI grant money available. And it's just a matter of, do we want to try to pursue some of that since we can't do district rate money?
Okay, I'm in favor of pursuing the money, using it for that purpose, but keeping in mind that instead of 6, we probably have 7 areas. And since the 7th area has got funding, let's leverage it to also bring everyone that we can together around the issue.
And to Daryl, to your comment too, I would say this has not been structured in any way. So if there's a decision to go forward with this, maybe you'd be one of the key people to decide how to craft the specifics of the competition.
I don't think I'm the key person or any one of the key people, but I defer to Sean, who is the current president.
All right, so we're all good with moving forward with this? Is that what I heard? Anybody opposed to doing it? Okay, all right, Colin, we'll get together and get started on putting a plan together.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, okay, now, Leslie, you want to talk about fruit sales?
I do. Can I do Happy Dollars since we forgot?
Oh, yeah.
Skipped over Happy Dollars.
Yeah, yeah, let me take it.
Okay, Happy Dollars.
I have one.
Arlene's got one.
Okay. These flags on our table today, Dave Morgan made the stand.
Yay, Dave.
It's a very good idea. Thank you, Dave.
Good job, David. Anybody else Happy Dollars?
Well, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I know I should give at least 6 for one for each week. Linda and I spent 6.5 weeks driving on a road trip and did 9,000 miles. Wow. And visited 18 states.
Oh.
All of that. But we spent, the fun was we spent 3 weeks in California with the California kids. And we were up in the Sierras quite a bit of time, and we escaped all the smoke. Smoke came just as we were leaving up there. But anyway, got a chance to see Grand Canyon, Zion, Bryce, Mesa Verde, and the Durango train, thanks to Bob's suggestion. And anyway, it's been wound up in Frankfort, Kentucky, where we spent several days touring the distilleries. And I know. And anyway, and the horse country and all of that stuff. But anyway, it was a fantastic trip and had not one glitch along the way. So it was good.
We're happy you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Safe and sound. Ready for another road trip. We could have stayed on that road trip for another 6 weeks easily. So we've done those things before all around the country. So anyway, good to be back.
Who drove the most? You or Linda?
I drove 100% of the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it gets easier for me, trust me.
Got you.
And I don't have to say. Because there were some pretty curvy roads in Colorado. That's some of those areas up there. So no, I enjoy driving. So that was driving. So, and we're still speaking to each other.
There you go.
Yeah. That's,
Anybody else? I have 2. One, because my sisters were here all last week. They left Saturday. Very sad day for me, but they'll be back. And my second Happy Dollar is on Sunday. I'm privileged to work at the Make-A-Wish fundraiser at St. James Woodlands Gee, Rob Bell ran it. We had 4 bands. We had food trucks. You name it that was there. It started at 1 and ended at like 8. And she made, make a wish, $30,000.
Oh, hell.
Amazing event.
Whoa.
Okay, so now I'm still on, right?
Yes,
Okay.
you are still on.
I'm still on. Mike Youngall is not here. He's on his way to Michigan for vacation. He asked me to give out the fruit sale kits. So I will pass them around. Gotta get started selling. What's in your folder is a sample letter, 1 color brochure, and 8 black and white brochures. So we'll start getting that going, and hopefully by the time it gets back, we will have tons of sales for you. If you have any questions, don't ask me. No, you can ask me. I'll figure it out. But Mike will be back in a week or so. And that's really all I had.
For those that don't know, the fruit is yummy.
Fruit is good.
I mean, it's a little pricey, but it's yummy.
Back to you, Ms.
Okay,
President.
so now we're gonna move to Dave Morgan.
Okay.
Hi, Arlene, thanks for the compliment on these things, but in case you're wondering, I made these from scrap from my workshops. I didn't spend any of the club's money to build this. Got the idea from Brenda. Colorado used to do this. She actually emailed somebody there and said, take a picture of it. They sent it back. So mine isn't exactly like that, but it works and it's cheap. So I got a couple of big boxes of flags. For those of you that may not know, for years it's been a tradition if you're going to visit another club, you take one of your club's flags, exchange flags at that club, you bring it back. Hopefully your club's got a place to display it. My old club in Maryland they owned their buildings, so they had a permanent display. It was like these big folding doors attached to a wall, and they had probably 1,000 of these things that were always on display. But we don't have that option here, so this is another chance. While going through these things, I had them out in my workshop, I had Maury Pam's iron. I take them out there and iron some of them that were wrinkled up so they hang. While I was going through, I decided to go ahead and tally these to see where they came from. As you would expect, we got more from North Carolina than any other place. We also have some from 21 other states. We got a total of 53 flags from states. Now, behind North Carolina, where do you think the second largest place we have flags is from?
New Jersey.
No, I'll give you New Jersey. Do we have anything in New Jersey?
Of course not.
Yeah, we do. We have, maybe not. I don't think we have any in New Jersey. I'll give you a hint. It's not a state.
Oh,
Question
the
is
District of
easy.
Columbia.
DC.
No, Japan.
Japan.
We have 6 flags from Japan.
Wow.
And we have 5 flags from Argentina. We have 2 from Brazil, 2 from England. One of those from England is from Southport, England. 1 from Norway, 1 from the Philippines, 1 from Australia, 2 from Bahamas, 2 from India, 1 from Switzerland, 1 from Suriname. I didn't even know where that was. I had to Google it. It's
Where?
Suriname.
Where is it?
It's in South America.
Oh,
What surprised me, the native language there is Dutch. So
Oh.
that's all I know. 1 from Madagascar and 1 from Mauritius. I had to look that up too. That's an island, Indian Ocean, that's east of Madagascar. We have 13 countries and 26 flags from those countries. Kind of interesting.
that's great.
And then on Charlie's desk here, here's the most interesting flag. Instead of one you hang, this one actually came on a little pedestal, which is granite. And I have no clue where this is from. There's no script on it. I took a picture of it and I sent it to our district governor to ask her if she knew. I haven't heard back yet, so I'll let you know. It's kind of fun going through these things. We have some Southport flags that I have in a box, so if anybody's going to visit another club, see me.
Can you
Early,
give one,
huh?
can you give one to, sorry.
I guess, absolutely.
You have the flag?
Yeah, got one right here. Yeah, I have the old Southport flag and the new Southport flag. I think when I was president, we reworked this thing.
Yeah. I remember that.
They're pretty similar,
Yeah.
except we added St. James. I don't think St. James was in existence when the original flag was made. Added Castle Beach and Fort Fisher, and there was a little symbol there, nuclear symbol there for the power plant. Didn't think that was necessary anymore, so I got rid of that. That's a flag story.
Thank you again.
The other presentation is, we have an award we've been trying to give away for a long time. As you know, last year we started to make an award, the Rotarian of the Year. And here's our first winner over there last year. And the person we picked this year, we've been having a hard time giving it to this person because they don't show up much. The original plan is to present this at the installation of the officers. This person wasn't there, so we could present it. John says, well, let's just wait till the next time we have a social event, we'll present it then. Guess what? I had it there, the person didn't show up. So finally, this person is here today. So we're gonna present it to him. And the person is Bill Jenkins. Oh. And Bill, the reason you're getting this is for your hard work as a club treasurer for 20, how many years?
21 years, I guess, Wayne, it's been 21 years, yeah.
Yeah, when I was going through these flags, one of the things I happened to find was a program for the officer installation from 20 years ago. And half the people in this thing are dead, but you don't want to.
Well, I just got a good report back from my heart doctor, so I'm good. So I'm around to give Bob some advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I need it.
yeah.
So rather than wait for the next special event, decide, let's go ahead and give it to him today. So,
Well, thank you. I am not prepared, except that, I guess, just the number one thing is that when you think back on 20 years, I think about 20 presidents.
Oh.
You know, 20 different presidents, and, I mean, from Darrell all the way back to, I don't remember now, Wayne Booth, the first 20 years ago. But I mean, Jim Babette, I mean, it's just name after name after name.
Who was the first one?
Oh, Bert Myers. Okay, Bert Myers was the very first one. Now, when I came, I think Bert was there at some of the meetings, but I don't think he was. Bert Myers, but yeah, anyway, having the privilege of working not only with 20 different presidents, and everyone was different and had different goals and different projections and things to do, but
Yeah, notice when he left.
yeah, that's right.
Notice when he left.
I know, I think through, and some of them are not with us any longer and all that sort of stuff, but anyway. And of course, 20 different boards of directors there along the way, but anyway, I guess the good thing is after 20 years, I didn't leave town and go to Rio with
with anybody. I'm still here. So Wade audited our records for the 20 years I've been here. And so 20 years I've been here, I've been able to stay out of trouble, right, Wade?
We had one. We didn't have any decimal, did we?
Well, wait a minute, he just went on a 50,000-mile trip.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Bob hasn't had a chance to audit. Oh, anyway, yes, no, Dave, Daryl, everybody, thank you very much. Yes. That's, yeah, this is. Well, yeah.
Was it a surprise?
Yeah. No, yes,
That's unlikely.
yeah.
Well deserved.
Yeah, we were going to have her. And one of those occasions, they weren't there.
I gotta get my big mug off of there.
Thank you.
They're gonna be throwing up after that.
Okay, so without, does anybody have anything else they need to bring up before we let Tony start?
I just have one simple thing. Does anybody have change of 20 so we can take Daryl back? 2 tens, 2 tens.
I wanted to talk about Matthew Fenner.
Okay,
Okay, as probably everybody knows by now, I've been receiving people with emails about helping Peter out while he's in Portugal. And desperately need to sign up for September the 30th. And also take a look at the signups that we already have. We have a lot of people signed up for later on that may not even remember they were on the list. So I have sent out a copy of the list via email so you can check. So please, somebody sign up for September the 30th, and I'll pass this around from table to table if anybody wants to sign up. And then one other thing is, we're looking at, we got another quarterly billing coming up, and we're looking at maybe changing how we charge for meals. I told that Andy here that because he told me never charging for meals. But it looks like we really need to do that. So I'm gonna form a little committee to try and put something together, a proposal for the fund.
Right, consistently charging everybody weekly, whether they attend or not, in your dues. Do we charge only when people come to the meeting and they give me, as a sergeant in arms, whatever that amount is, $10 or $12?
We can do all the right.
Those are the 2 thoughts that you need to think about.
okay.
Ready?
We're ready.
All right. My name's Tony Young. I'm the chief of the Oak Island Water Rescue. And I just want to start with this is my kind of club. The guy wins Rotarian of the Year.
Yes.
And he has to put up with like a 5-minute roast about why he's never been here to pick up. Don't make it easy on him. Yeah, he might be the guy, but we're going to knock him down a peg or two. I gave this same talk to the evening club, and then I think 3/4 of us who were there ended up with Corona. And I had it, I guess, before I went, but I didn't know. So hopefully most everybody's over that now. But I saw something the other day online that said I didn't live through going to college in the early 80s to be taken out by a virus named after a light beer. So here I am, still kicking.
You're okay?
I'm fine. And I never was very sick. And so that's why when I gave that speech that Wednesday night, I had a little stuffy nose and a cough and had no idea. Sunday, I found out I actually had COVID. So never did get sick. But I should be the safest guy in the room because I caught COVID before they really started talking about what it was. My doc didn't know. He just said there was a virus going around. Then I got vaccinated. And so now I've got the new variant, so daggone it, I should be impervious to this thing for a while. For the folks on the Zoom, I'm gonna do a little bit of show and tell, and I'll hold it up in front of the camera as I go along. And also, I love when this is kind of interactive, and so you ask me questions along the way, so that it doesn't get to be this boring thing that we just stand here talking at you. So sing them out anytime you get one. Go ahead to the next slide. The first thing I want to start with is you guys approached me with this great idea. Camera guys, you've probably seen these before. These signs that we put at Oak Island at the beach accesses. And it shows, we were hoping these flags would catch people's attention and they'd look a little closer. The big idea was the Q code on the top here. So as you're walking on the beach, you scan it with your phone. It updates every 15 minutes from the National Weather Service. It tells you what the current condition is, which is better than checking it in the morning and then going out there and finding out it's a lot rougher. So you guys initiated this together. We did it and had Rotary members help put these signs up, and we got great feedback from the town and citizens. So thank you very much for these. As a spin-off, I said, well, there's all these people who rent houses down here right on the beach. They don't go to the street ends to get onto the beach. So we got refrigerator magnets with the same QR code. And I've given away somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,700 of these things for the different rental agencies and just people that have family come use their house or they rent them or whatever. So now I'm just giving away this last batch of them to anybody who wants one. If you go to the beach or you know somebody who goes to the beach, stop by up here and grab one of these on the way out. But our idea is not everybody will look at those signs, but everybody's going to go to the fridge in the morning when they're making their coffee or their eggs. And so if that thing will catch their attention and make them check, I really think it's going to make a huge difference. So that was another safety initiative that grew out of those signs. And so thank you very much for that. Okay. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And I've changed this briefing up. The people that saw it the other night will know what I'm doing, but instead of just giving you facts about Oak Island water rescue and that kind of thing, I mix some stories in. So hopefully it's not as boring as it would be. Go ahead. So what we are is not part of the fire department of Oak Island, not part of the town at all. We're a nonprofit. It's all volunteers. We don't get paid to do what we do. The town treats us as contractors, so they do provide some budget. Their budget basically is just enough to put gas in the boats, keep the lights on and the water flowing at the station. Anything we want to do, get a new boat or a new truck or some new initiative like these signs, we have to raise that money. And last year, after Isaias flooded our station about waist deep, we had to start from scratch inside the building. And I'll say between our insurance and all the fundraising we did, we're as healthy as we've ever been. And we've got the new building completely revamped. All the outlets are up this high. So it's going to take a really bad storm to get us next time. And everything in there is waterproof, so we can just hose the place out if it does get wet inside. There's 20 of us on the team. We're only authorized 20 by our charter. So if we wanted to change that, it would be like a constitutional amendment. And 20 seems to be a really good number. In the last couple of years, we've averaged about 12 of our members showing up for every single call, which is really good. Days gone by, the team's been around for about 22 years now. They actually had to launch a surf boat with only 2 people on scene. So you're grabbing people off the beach saying, help me drag this boat into the water. So we're really fortunate. We've got active members who wanted to do this. And to be on the team, it's a 24/7 job. You'll see I'm carrying my pager, which like nobody uses these anymore, I guess. But we don't man the station. So we just happen to be wherever we happen to be when somebody calls 911 and there's a water rescue, maybe. This thing will go off, and I've also got an app on my phone. And then the team converges either on the station or at the site of the emergency. So that's how we operate. We don't have shifts and we don't have people assigned to work certain days. We're all on duty as long as we're available. You could see some of the kind of people we have, firemen and paramedics, a lot of retired folks. I'm one of the youngest ones there. Military, that's me at 25 years in the Air Force. But I decided to get away from airplanes and go back to boats because that's the way I grew up. We've got a school teacher who taught home ec. You would think, what in the world is she doing on the team? Well, she was in the Coast Guard Auxiliary for many years. And they still bring her back to do inspections and stuff out of the Coast Guard station because she's so well versed in what they do. And she's got her captain's license and actually runs tugboat tours up and down the waterway and out around Southport. So you never can tell by what a person's occupation was before they got there, whether or not they're going to be a good member. The other female who's on the team is a lifeguard at Brunswick Community College, and she is quite a swimmer. So the first rule in water rescue is don't leave the boat, and she's the first one to go to the side if somebody needs help. So it's a pretty diverse team, and like I said, everybody's really dedicated to it. As the chief, you know, it's when I was in the military, if I was the commander, then whatever I say goes. We do it right now, and with a smile on your face. And now I got 19 volunteers, and I have to kind of herd cats a little bit. Sean probably knows a little bit about getting people to do stuff without giving orders. So I had to make that adjustment when I retired from the Air Force. Okay. So I'm going to go into one of my stories now. Look at this real close. You may even remember this story, but this picture to me, I can tell you the whole story of water rescue right here. There's an anonymous rescuer guy, because we're not doing it for the fame or the money, carrying a little kid we just pulled out of the ocean and handed him back to his parents. Now, look at the ocean in the background. It's not rough at all. It's smooth, no waves out there, but there's also not a boat in sight. And so the day this happened, that little boy, he was 8, maybe 9 years old at the time, was on one of those giant unicorn rafts. It's about this tall that they sell at all beach stores that are not meant for the ocean. He was on one of those, and the wind grabbed that thing. The reason the ocean looks like this is because it's the north wind blowing out to sea. And so our beach, the ocean just calms down, so nobody's worried. But those things are so tall that the wind caught it and it became a sailboat. His dad saw it happen and went running after him, jumped in the water, swimming as fast as he could, and their competitive swimmer, brother-in-law, went after him too, and neither one could swim fast enough to catch that float. So when we got there, this little kid was close to a mile offshore. I mean, literally, the flamingo looked about this tall. That's how far out he was. And like I said, there for whatever reason, there were no fishermen, no other boats out there. For us, it was a really routine call. We launched the boat, we went out, they got the kid, they brought him back to the shore, we ate him over to his parents. Easy peasy, good job. Everybody feels good, nobody got hurt. Then I got to listen to the 911 call on Mother Day. And I always remind the guys, I'll play it for them every now and then, because when we get called out, it has the potential to be the worst day in that family's life. And this mother was in hysterics as her son disappeared towards the horizon. So what was just a typical, easy, nice launch and recovery for us was on the verge of being those folks' worst day of their lives. But they got their son back. We got press all over the world, literally all over the world. I did interviews with everybody, including Good Morning America and some TV station in San Diego. We got press from Japan and Norway. So this kind of put our social media on the map when it happened. And thank goodness it was a good story. This family went on Good Morning America, and the little kid was wearing his Ohio Water Rescue hat.
Oh.
So that's pretty cool. Okay. So what we do is, if you draw a ring in the water around Oak Island and including over here the Southport side and all the way down to Lock Folly Inlet, we're the shallow water guys, because we've got a Coast Guard station here, and they can take care of all that deep water rescue. I mean, that's what they do. They can't come into the breakers on the beach like I can, and they can't get back in the marsh like I can. And so our job is, we work with those guys, including the Sheriff's Department, the Wildlife, our own fire department, and police department. They're usually on the calls, the ambulance. So it's one big crew. When 911 gets called, if it's something to do with water, almost all of those agencies are gonna go. And so I was talking to one of you about lifeguards beforehand, and I know that's a hot topic right now. And lifeguards could save a lot of people because they'd be right there on the spot, you would hope. But just know a massive effort goes out every time 911 gets called for a water emergency. And it's not just us, although we're the experts in the close-in stuff, but we've got all these other guys that converge to help us. So if you saw anything about the drownings that happened by Oak Island Pier, it's been 3 weeks ago or a month ago, we had 2 helicopters overhead and there were 6 boats in the water. We had trucks and ATVs going up and down the beach, not to mention some people actually getting into the water to try to find the missing guy. I've already talked about how we're on call, but not on duty. And that's just the way it works. I can't make people man the station and work there, but what we do is on big holiday weekends, stuff like that, is a lot of us will just converge and hang out at the station. And we'll start the boats up and get them warm and just have them parked in the driveway ready to go. So sometimes we're a little bit closer than we are at normal times a year. And each person drives their own vehicle. So it's not like I've got the chief's truck I can drive to the scene. I have to drive my personal vehicle. And I've got my personal equipment I bring with me and everything. So it's pretty neat that you got 20 people that are willing to do this 24/7, 365. And so we never get time off unless we're not on the island. Okay. So just in case you were getting excited and ready to join us, I wanted to show this picture of what we do. It's a really good dramatic shot of a surf launch. So we take that small boat. It's about 13 feet long. And on this day, we would use 6 people to pull it out into the waves. And we literally just drop it on the sand and then we drag it into the water. And 2 guys jump in while the other guys hold it there stable, and then we go. I've had a lot of people ask me how rough it could be before we wouldn't go. And I don't have an answer for that because I always look at everything on a spectrum. So if the danger's this high for the person who's out there, then I'm willing to go this high for my guys. But if the danger's low, then the amount of risk I'm willing to take comes way down. So if there's a boatload of nuns and orphans out there, we're going in a hurricane. But if there's a raft out there falling end over end like we get called for every year, and it's obvious nobody's on it, then I'm not going if it's really rough. So that's why hard and fast rules don't work in this business, just like the not getting out of the boat. For the right reason, I'll get out of the boat and save somebody. So everything is a shade of gray, and people have to make those decisions on the spot. Okay. So last year we had 51 calls, and that's in spite of our beach being closed down twice. First time for COVID. They basically said nobody on the beach, you can't park here anyway, so you were having to walk from somewhere else. And then Isaias came, and if you remember that, we had 3 feet of sand all down Beach Road, and that whole west end of the island was blocked off, the beach was closed. Still had 51 calls. You can see 6 of those were saves. What we count as a save is somebody was, no kidding, going to be really terribly injured or dead if we weren't there. So some other units counted as a save if they stop you from going into the water when it's rip current conditions high or something. We don't do that. It has to be a real thing before I'll count it. So that's about 10%-ish, a little more last year. And so all those other calls, this is what they were. Lots of calls for somebody that's swimming and they're too far out. I wish somebody could show me that line in the water because I never know where it is. Sometimes it's just past the breakers, and other times it's past the end of the pier. And don't get me wrong, people mean well when they make that call because they're worried about somebody. And we always go and check it out. But there's no way I can sit on the beach and say somebody's too far out. Now, if they look like they're struggling and drowning or something, then yeah, maybe they're too far out. But we go anyway. Lots of unidentified floating objects in the water. I had one a few weeks ago. This lady calls and she goes, "There's a guy out there and he is struggling." And she could tell it was a grown male, and he's struggling, and he's several hundred yards off shore, and he's barely making any progress. So we went down and checked it out, and it was 3 Mylar balloons, and they were purple, and they washed up on the beach. And so that just goes to tell you, when people are looking out there, they excited because they were so worried. And I'm glad they called, because get those balloons out of the water so the turtles don't eat them, get wrapped around a bird or whatever. And it's good practice for us to respond on that. Every time I hear a too far out call or unidentified, there's something out there, I think it's a person, I always kind of think, okay, slow down just a little bit. Let's see what we see when we get there. We do a lot of transports off the beach. So these aren't water rescues, but somebody gets overheated or overindulgent a little bit. It's the Bud Light poisoning. Sometimes people twist an ankle or step on a fish hook, and we will come with our 4-wheel drive trucks and drive them to the ambulance. So some of those are actually saved. We've saved several people that had heart attacks on the beach. And so we get there and start CPR, and then we get them in the back of our truck and get them to the ambulance and get them to the hospital. Flare sightings, a lot of them last year, not so many this year, but you know how our beach curves? So if you were standing at the lighthouse, say, you could look and the beach goes this way and it comes back out and you can see that big thing down at Ocean Island. So depending on where you are on the beach, if you're looking down the beach, you might actually be looking over water. So when some guy at Baldhead shoots a Roman candle off, now it looks like there's a flare from a boat in trouble. And if you're looking straight out and you see flares, maybe multiple ones, people don't know that there's a military operating area for aircraft. And it's just over the horizon from what you can see, except those planes fly so high, when they're popping those flares out there, you can see them. And I can tell you right now, I mean, I'm guilty of this too, you can't tell how far something is across water in the dark. It's impossible. So when they see those really bright flares out there over the horizon, they automatically, they'll say, oh, it's only a mile off the beach. Like, no, that's an airplane. It's probably 30 miles away. So we haven't had too many of those this year, thankfully. But since this slide was made, we've had 4 more calls. Luckily, pretty good this year. We did have those 2 fatalities, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not into victim shaming, but they knew it was a yellow day, and they knew that none of them could swim. And they knew our recommendation was not to go in above knee deep in the water on a yellow day. And they violated every one of those things. And unfortunately, we're standing right where rip current formed. And I'm not sure we could have saved them if we didn't stand on the beach watching them, because their friends did. They ran in and got 2 of them out of the water. So we've been a little bit lucky. Ocean Isles had several drownings this year. Holden Beach has had several drownings. Sunset has, Wrightsville has. So we had those 2, and there were 1 incident. Normally we'll have several incidents in a year with similar outcomes. And this year it's just been the 2. And I don't want to downplay those, but you know, we've actually been lucky this year. And I hope part of it is for our education that we're doing, because that's what we focused on mostly this year. And I don't know if you follow us on Facebook, but you ought to. We're up over 20,000 followers right now, and lots of good water safety stuff up there every day. Okay. Here's another one. This is an interesting one. This is good for Southport too. You have to look closely at that picture, but that's an 18-wheeler who's where he's not supposed to be. That is the nuclear cooling water canal that goes underneath 2 bridges, one by Walmart, and then the one over on 87, and this is the one on 87. This guy was taking wood chips to that power plant that they just decided they're going to shut down over here on the coal ash or whatever it was. They burned all those wood chips and rubber tires and stuff. He woke up as he was sliding down the hill, so he fell asleep just before he got to the bridge and ended up down in the canal. So they called us out and put our boat in, and he was already out of the boat. They were to save him, but you can't see the guy very well, but there's a guy laying on the front of our boat who's attaching cables to that thing. So they had this giant crane that lifted out of the water. And that was a call that came out at right at midnight. And we stayed on the water until about 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning before they finally let us go. I didn't put the picture in here, but you know that stinky foam stuff that's always on top of that water?
Yeah.
But when I was actually on the boat this night, when they backed me into that canal, that stuff rose up head high and collapsed into the boat and just covered everything. If you know what this stuff is, out of the nuclear plant, they pull cool water in from the river, and it runs through these giant, I'll call them rainbows. They're about as big as this room is, like diameter. It's got all these tubes that run through it with the heavy water from the reactor, and then that cool water flows across those to act as a big heat exchanger. Well, that water boils in there because that nuclear water is so hot, and that kills all those little shrimp and crabs and fish and whatever else is in there. So what you're seeing in that canal with those bubbles is just like if you just had a shrimp boil at your house, and it smells the same, and it sticks to everything. In my boat, in my exposure suit, in my helmet, in my shoes, was covered in that stuff, and it was brown, and we couldn't clean it. It wouldn't come off. We ended up having this high-powered pressure washer to get that stuff off. So, word to the wise: do not go swimming in that canal. That is not a nice place to be. Okay, so here's what we've got right now. We've got the 3 4-wheel drives. One of them is an SUV that's not really greatly suited for that job, but we use it to pull our bigger boat. We've got the small surf launch boat that I showed you the picture of a while ago, and then we've got its big brother, which is about a 16-footer with a 70-horse outboard, also an inflatable with a aluminum hull. Much faster, better to go out into the ocean if you have to go beyond just the breakers like you do with the surf boat. It's got all the navigation equipment, the lights and everything. The surf boat is very bare bones. It's nothing but a hull and a motor. And we jump in and we take what we need with us because it just gets beat up so much in the waves. After Isaias, somebody donated a John boat to us, which is much better than the one we used to have. We converted it over to a rescue boat. And then if you are watching us on Facebook, you know that last year, actually February this year, we got Huddlecraft, and this thing is handmade. It's got thrust reversers. It's got an aircraft engine. It cost $60,000, and somebody bought it for us. It didn't cost the town or our supporters anything. I just told the guy that we were looking for one. You know, we were thinking about for down the road in the future, and 2 days later, he handed me a check. So that thing is awesome. When you see it out there, it's super loud. Lots of people complain about it because we mess up their fishing, but there's nowhere I can't go now. So when you drive over the bridge, you can see all those mud flats and all that grass out there. At low tide, there's no chance of getting the boat in there. So you might say, well, if there's no chance of getting the boat in there, why would you need to go there? Because of kayakers. Kayakers will go anywhere and everywhere, as far back into that marsh as they can possibly get, trying to find that next redfish hole. And then the tide goes out and they're stuck there. And we had a case, it's probably been 3 years back now. 2 ladies from Ohio were just out kayaking, having fun. They weren't even fishing, they were just bobbing around in the marsh. And the tide went out, and I guess they weren't prepared for that. And they were close enough to me that I could yell from some people's back deck and talk to them back and forth, but I couldn't get to them, sit in the boat, and one of the guys jumped out and went into mud about this deep. So we thought we were gonna have to rescue him too, but luckily he was able to get back in the boat. So we had to wait for the sheriff's airboat to come another hour, more than an hour before they got to the people. So that's when I said, hey, we've gotta have a way to get to people. So my mission in life is to have you have it so there's no way you can get to some place where I can't come and get you. The next thing we're looking for is a high water truck. I'm sure you've seen them before in the areas that are prone to flooding. I'd like to get one of those old Army surplus trucks with tires this tall, will drive through 5 feet of water. It won't come in very handy around here very often. But like Isaias, with all that surge and flood water, if we would have had that, we would have did a lot more help to the citizens. As it was, they ruined the fire truck by driving into the water and sucked water up into the intake. And we ended up with the sheriff's MRAP, if you know what that is, the big heavy duty military truck. And they saved, I think, 24 people that night. They got out of houses along the beach that stayed for a storm. So that'll be my next thing. I did bring a few show and tell things. Being an Air Force pilot, you know, if there's something that flies, I want it. So we got this thing a couple of years ago, and I'm sure you see them all the time now because it seems like everybody's got one. I seen this thing. Your little drone doesn't look like much, but it's not a toy. It'll fly up to 5 miles away and still have plenty of battery to come back. One time we used it and we really needed to get out and check something out. It was a float offshore. There might have been a person on it, and it will fly over 60 miles an hour to get where it's going. Right now, I've got the speaker mounted on top, so I can fly up to you and talk to you through this thing. So I'm looking at it on the screen, and I know that I'm aimed at you, and I can talk to you. So a couple of years ago, there was a couple teenagers out on kayaks, and we could see them from the beach, and they're just out there having fun, and the sun is going. And it's about to get dark, and they have no life jackets, no lights, and what are you doing? So I flew this out there right beside them, and I said, "This is Oak Island Water Rescue. Return to the beach." And those kids kicked up a wave on their way back, so they knew they were in trouble. This, the camera on this thing doesn't look like much. It's this little deal right here. But it does infrared as well as visible light. And so several weeks ago, there was a guy lost in the marsh behind the point at Oak Island. Sheep Island and Horse Island are out there. There's all those marshes in between. And this guy went out kayaking with his buddy. His buddy came back and he wasn't there. So he got out of his kayak, and his paddle floated away. And then he took his life jacket off, and it floated away. Then he lost his shoes in the mud. I guess he was trying to walk through the mud, and his shoes got pulled off his feet. So then he took his shirt off and like was hopping with his shirt around his feet to keep from getting cut up on the oyster shells. Lost his shirt, so he took his trunks off. Now, by the time we got to this guy, he had nothing but his underwear on, but we found him with that. We flew right out there, and you could see, I mean, all his skin's exposed, so he was easy to see on infrared. It's like, oh, there's a half-naked guy right there. So we used this to fly over the top of him, told him to stay still, and then our boat used the drone, because when you're down in that boat behind all that grass, it's really hard to tell. But if I can look up and see the drones hovering over this guy, then I can work my way over. And so the way we finally got him was he couldn't walk anymore because of the oyster shell. So one of the guys stayed in the boat and took his shoes off, and the other guy took his shoes. So he walked back to the boat in one of my guy's shoes, half naked. And I don't know if you ever found this kayak and the rest of that stuff. I'm sure it's still floating around the marsh out there, but we would never been able to get to it without that. So this thing gets you up in the air and gives you kind of that God's eye view of what's happening out there with the infrared. It's really easy at night to find somebody. This is another. I seem like I picked some of the ones that I was actually on the case, but last year a guy tried to commit suicide by jumping off the Oak Island pier, and it was chilly out first thing in the morning, and that picture doesn't do the waves justice. They were actually pretty high waves, and if you know, near the piers, the waves are bigger. Well, he landed in the water at the end of the pier. They called 911. He swam under the pier and was clinging to the pilings under the pier, which, you know, those things throw barnacles and oysters and all kinds of stuff. So he's out there putting blood in the water, and people that were fishing are putting bait in the water. And so pretty soon you start getting this idea that we're chumming this guy up, and maybe he's changed his mind about committing suicide, but he might get his wish after all. So in this case, I don't have any authority to order somebody out of the water or into my boat. So I took a police officer with me, and I didn't, none of my like really experienced boat guys were there. So I took the call myself, and I had to maneuver the boat under the pier amongst the pilings and big waves with the police officer who may or may not know anything about being on a boat. So that was a tricky call. In the end, the guy didn't want to come with us, and the police officer, he can say for your own safety, we're taking you. So he grabbed him, I grabbed him, we put him in the bottom of the boat and sat on him until we got back to the beach. And by the time we got back to the beach, we were all friends again, and he went off and got some treatment. He's doing fine the last I heard. So this is the last club was asking me some stuff about what we need next. So these are just 3 things that I came up with on my short list. Unless y'all want to buy me a truck.
We were thinking about one of those hovercrafts.
Another one?
Yeah.
Let's get a bigger one this time. So we've got a tentative deal in place to do a child safety day, and the Rotary Club is going to help us fund this. It's a life-size floating dummy, and the one we're looking at is they make it in England for the Royal National Life Saving Institute. The RNLI is like the oldest water rescue organization in the world. And so they put a lot of thought and effort into these things. You can have it float face down on the water, like somebody's unconscious, or you can weight the legs a little bit and it'll stand up straight like it's waiting for help. And it weighs, I think it weighs 88 pounds or 100 pounds, something like that. So it's not the same as pulling a person into the boat, but it also means we won't get injured so much pulling that thing in. Because it's heavy enough, you still have to use proper technique to do it, but it's also not heavy, so heavy that you might injure yourself pulling it in. And if we're really pulling a person in, the adrenaline's gonna help us get that extra. We used to practice that with live people, but we hurt ourselves too much to continue doing that. It turns out it wasn't really worth it to be putting our own members in harm's way and dragging them into the boat.
How much is that?
It's on that last slide if you want to click down a few times. I think it's there it is, $1,400.
And just as an update, the district grant that we were doing with the evening club, that we had to revise it because we were putting the signs up earlier than approval for the grant. They did let us go in and modify it. And we got approval this week to continue on the project with their needs. So
Oh,
This will help us because not only is it how do I get somebody in the boat, but I can use this to be a search tool.
Yeah.
So I can have one boat drop this thing off and not tell the other guys where it is, and then make them do an actual search like it's a real person out there. So we've had one in the past and it was really small and really low to the water, almost impossible to find once it got wet. This will be much better for that use. So we really appreciate it. It's gonna make us even better with our training, because we want our training to be as realistic as possible.
do I need to go back?
Yeah, back up. Let's see.
Tony, I have one question.
Yeah.
When the signs say, and I saw the one sign going over the Oak Island Bridge, no swimming today, do you have the right to tell people you cannot go swimming? Or is that a suggestion?
Oh, it's getting tricky now. So those signs that you see, the flashing signs
Right.
on the way in, those are town signs.
Okay,
They have the ability to close the beach and say the water's closed. I don't have that. I can make a recommendation to the town that they ought to do that, but I can't do that. Now, caveat, this last tropical storm that went up our coast, and it was terrible, and there were rip currents everywhere and giant waves as far as you could see. Did I drive up and down the beach, get people out of the water? Yes, I did. And they don't know that I don't have that authority, but I told them to get out of the water, and they did. So I had one couple who was giving me a hard time. It looked like they were like mid-20s maybe, and they kept going out and coming back in. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. And I was, before we got in the truck, I was standing at the beach. I just walked over there and, told them what the situation was. And they were like, well, we're good swimmers or whatever. And I said, well, do me a favor and get a Sharpie and write your name and social security number and a phone number next to kin on your arm. And it'll make it a lot easier for me to notify them when I get your body off the beach later. And so they left. They went back to their house after I told them that. But there are days where we just can't go. I mean, we can't go out in a hurricane, which we get called every time there's a hurricane. Like this last one, the cars were floating down the street. They wanted us to take a boat and go check in these cars to see if people were in them. None of my boats will live in hurricane or even strong tropical force winds, so we can't go. And I had to make that call, which is a really hard call to make when they're calling you from 911 to say, we need you. And I have to say, no, we're not going. But it happens. So, and if somebody wants to swim in those conditions and it's too rough for me to launch a boat out there, we're just not going to go. And we try to tell people, and they go every time. Surfers get a bad rap, right? But at least the surfer's got a flotation device attached to him. So maybe he'll come back to the shore, but these people that just want to go swim, or during that storm, we had some people out there holding a little toddler, like 1.5 old, bobbing up and down in the water out there. Like one good rip current, and that's going to be it. You're not going to be able to save that baby. So we don't have that authority, but we act like we do when we need to.
One last question.
Yeah.
How many alligators do you rescue?
We don't mess with alligators. At all possible. We get caught for wildlife a lot. We get caught for alligators on the beach and in the ocean. Several times deer have been in the water. In fact, a deer drowned a couple of years ago. It was swimming kind of close to ocean crest here, but every time it would come in, all the people would run up with their phones to try to get pictures of it, and it would swim back out. And they followed this deer down the beach doing that, and the deer drowned because they wouldn't get out of the way and let the deer back on the beach. We've been called for turtles tangled up in nets and fishing lines and stuff, and I always refer them to Mary Ellen or the wildlife people to go take care of that. We go for people. I've got a few more show and tell things here. I showed you this thing has got the speaker on it now, but it also has a spotlight. And this thing doesn't look like much, but it'll light this whole room up and you won't look directly into it for very long. So for night searches, that's also good. It also helps our crew to see the drone itself, because when you're flying at night, you have to always have it within visual range. And when that thing gets out there, the little lights aren't so great. That thing is, you can turn the drone back towards it, turn that spotlight on. There's no mistaking where it's at. I didn't use this in my last briefing, but I wanted to show you guys. This thing is kind of cool. And anybody can get one of these. So if you see somebody caught in the rip current near the beach, if you had one of these, you could save them real quick. And we're going to pretend they're over there by that table. All this is a floating rope with a bag. But if the rip current is going that way, I can walk right up here. And that thing floats on top of the water. So all I've got to do is get close enough to them. And then, you know, a bunch of us can grab this rope and drag it back into the water. And we've got these up for the team. But I like it so much, I got my own, and I keep one on my boat when I go, and I keep one in my truck, because you just never know. And it weighs nothing. It's easy to throw. You just have to remember if it's windy out, you know, you gotta throw up wind so it'll come back to them.
Where can you get those?
You can just order them online, Amazon, things like that. It's a throw bag or a throw rope. So I told you we got 20 members on the team. So one of the expenses we have is just outfitting the team. So we've got these helmets. They're like for kayakers and stuff. And we finally got new personal flotation devices with the water rescue community. Everybody else knows their life jackets. And we don't want to be missed if you fall in the water. That's why it's so bright. And everybody's got a light attached to it. There's a tourniquet in the pocket. I added a little dive knife here on the side, so you just never know. But anytime we're on the boat, we have to expect that the boat's going to sink or break down, or we're going to end up in the water. And so we have to outfit every single member with this stuff. And we also have the Viper radios. So we did the math one time, and to totally outfit somebody for the team, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 per member to keep them in gear, and then the stuff wears out, you have to buy new and all that. So it just gives you an idea. It's not that cheap to keep people, even though we're all volunteers, so we're not paying them salary. To just outfit everybody and keep them trained, because every time you train, you put wear and tear in the equipment, including that stuff. So a lot goes into it, lots of maintenance, and we'll spend the rest of the year, because the calls will calm down a little bit now. And we'll spend the rest of the year fixing things that we noticed that didn't have to be done right away over the summer. But now we'll get into that and get everything back in tip-top shape for next Memorial Day. So it's usually Memorial Day to Labor Day is the big season. Very strange this year. We've told you we've had 52 calls, but only 8 of those came in August. So very strange. Only 8 calls in one of the highest summer months. It's a learning curve.
They found the man that was missing his kayak.
Not that I know of.
They
You're
found
talking
the
about
kayak.
up at, was it Wrightsville Beach or Carolina Beach? I saw it on the news, but it's not here local. It's up the coast.
They found the kayak.
Yeah.
They haven't found him.
Yeah, they found his car and the kayak, but not yet. So it doesn't bode well. I think it was at Carolina Beach. I think it was close to the Carolina Beach inlet. If you don't know, those inlets are dangerous. They're dangerous in a boat, and they're way too dangerous to swim in. So if you have friends and family come down here, not a place to swim. The Lockwood Folly Inlet especially is, it might as well just be a permanent rip current, because every time the tide goes out, it's going. Every time it comes back in, it's going the other way. And Michael Phelps couldn't swim against that thing and make any headway. My lifeguard I was telling you about, she is a strong swimmer, and we can put her in there and she'll be swimming as hard as she can, but she'll be going backwards. It's a good demo. We've used it a couple of times in TV interviews for how fast the water moves and how powerful it is by throwing stuff in and watching it zip through there. And it's just like a rip current. All that water is rushing out and you're not going to be able to go against it. So I think I've just about run out of stuff. Is there-
Thank you for all you do.
Sometimes I get carried away.
Tony, how do you feel about lifeguards on the beach?
You know what? I'm all for anything that makes people safer in the water. And if we get lifeguards, I will work side by side to make sure they understand what we do and we will help them. But I'm not involved with Oak Island politics at all.
Are they considering it?
There's a lot of people that are pushing for that, and so they'll have to consider it at some point. I will tell you, this is secondhand. Well, it's not actually. I did talk to the guy, but we're lucky that Oak Island allows us to do the rip current warnings and educations that we do. I talked to the assistant chief of the rescue squad in Holton Beach. He says they're not allowed to say the word rip currents, let alone put up signs or flags or anything else, because they're an at-risk beach, just like all the south-facing beaches are, which means you swim. If you swim, that's on you. And we're not saying we're going to come get you. So it has to do with liability and money for lifeguards and training and whatever else. I don't know. I've got this little team and we do something that's very specialized, but anything that makes people safer when they go in the water. I mean, refrigerator magnets, we paid for those and gave them away for free, because to me, that's going to save lives, and it's going to be calls I don't have to go on because people won't go in the water in those days.
So you just handle this local beach, other beaches is too far to get to get there fast enough.
Our charter says we will cover Oak Island from inlet to inlet, basically, and the marsh behind. But if those other squads need us, so Southport has a water rescue now, and we work with them. Tri Beach is at Holton Beach, we work with them as well. And we have a mutual aid agreement, so now we've got this hovercraft. So if somebody on Sunset Beach gets stuck in the mud back in their marsh, they could call us and we could go down and help out. What my charter says is I will provide mutual aid right up to the point where it makes it unsafe back on my home territory. So I can't send all my boats off the island to do something.
Is that drone big enough where you have to get it certified with FAA?
What we did, because it just was easier and a cleaner process, is all of us that fly the drone got our commercial license.
Oh, okay.
They have a process for an organization like us. And it's called a COA, something of agreement. It's an FAA process you go through, and then you don't have to have all the certification the commercial guys do.
Okay.
But it was such a pain, and it was so hard to go through and get the approval. We just need the drone to work today.
So you're exempt, you can go out there to save lives and not have to worry about the FAA regulations.
I always said if the FAA gets after me, then I'll explain myself later. We all did take a course to be certified to fly at night, as well as I just operate normally. And like when the helicopters came the other day, as soon as they said helicopters inbound, we landed the drone. So we're very conscious of other aircraft. And DJI, I don't know if you're a drone guy, but DJI has built-in software. When there's an aircraft in the area, you'll get a warning on the screen. And I've been flying this thing at my house when we first got it. And I was flying up above my roof line, and it said aircraft in the area, and it wouldn't let me go any higher. I could only come down. So just like I can't fly it over the nuclear plant because they've got what's called a geofence around it. And if I try to fly up to it, the drone itself will just stop and say I can't go any farther. So it doesn't look like much, but I'm telling you, the thing is incredibly up to date.
All right.
Anybody else? Here all day.
Yeah, here we are. But yeah, no, let's just end with the motto, service above self. Oh, we gotta do something, draw. I forget.
And don't forget to come grab some magnets though. you
I
can
do
give
need
away.
to, two of those.
Nobody has changed the 20.
I'll always got
I'll go with you. I always have credit cards.
Get me one, please.
Uh-oh.
Huh?
My neighbor's got little kids.
Let's grab one, huh?
Just grab one.
Oh, is this the one you folded and told me to get?
Yeah.
Wait, no, put that back.
I get accused of not doing it right. Now you can.
There you go.
All right. Who's it gonna be?
All right.
They're all over. I still ain't figured out your numbers, Bob.
Pull it out, Tony.
All right, the winning number is
The winning number is
846-255.
gotta be someone who came in right after me.
The person that got the tickets after me.
5-5. Name my tickets?
Yes.
Wait,
I came in late.
7, 5, 6, 5, 5.
That's the man.
That's it. All right.
That's your change. And here's your $6. It was 6.
Oh, you spent $5 to get 6.
Everybody's